Okay, today we're going to draw a head, and we're going to start by drawing a male head. So I've got this picture of myself when I was a little bit younger, with a nasty hair going out of my neck. I don't know if you can see that. When drawing a head, it's important to divide it down the center. Heads are, for the most part, symmetrical, so this will help us as a guide. And you'll also notice that I'm going to use basic shapes like a circle and lines to help us draw out the proportions of the head. And also, I like to draw a line across where the eyes might be. So on the left screen, I'm going to draw these things on top of the photograph, and on the right side, I'm just going to draw roughly the same thing so that you can follow along. And it's important when drawing the head to measure out the eyes. The head is actually about 5 eyes wide, so if you look, there's an eye width between each eyes as well as between each eye and the side of the head. And of course, the eyes each make up an eye width. Otherwise, they wouldn't be eyes. The ears tend to start about where the eyebrows start on the head and end where the nose ends. And so these are some basic measurements you can keep in mind when drawing the head. And these guidelines are important, but again, they're guidelines, so if they look a little bit off later on, you can tweak them. But it's always better to have them than to not have them, because if you don't have them, chances are something's going to be wrong. There's going to be a proportion that's off. So always do yourself a favor and start with guidelines. Now, the mouth is going to fall somewhere in the bottom quarter of the head. So halfway between the nose and the chin. Usually it's a little bit less than halfway, but looking at different people, it might be different. And looking at the portrait of myself, it's a little bit less than halfway between the nose and the chin. And when drawing the mouth, you can draw just the upper lips, you can draw the lower lip, it's up to you. And I'm going to go ahead and kind of flesh this out and let you look at the guidelines on the drawing on the left as a reference. And once you've got these guides all drawn and you're drawing your dark lines, you can kind of feel confident about what you're doing. And of course, you can always change it. Maybe the lines you drew were too hard or too soft, or maybe something was too wide. And that's always things that you can change as you work. But again, it's just more important to have those lines there as a reference. That way you're less prone to making mistakes. Now also, one other last note, the hair kind of falls more or less halfway between the eyebrows and the top of the skull. The hairline, I should say. This is of course different depending on the person you're looking at, but the average person will have a hairline right about there. So before we go into any more detail, let's go ahead and maybe start over after I finish drawing a few details in the eyes and the mouth. And we'll draw another male head, this time without a reference, and it's a good chance to kind of practice those proportions, and then we'll draw a female head so you can kind of see how that works. So again, I always start with a center line. I like to start with a circle. You could draw a box or an oval, and actually I do end up with an oval here for the chin. Drawing my horizontal guideline for the eyes, and of course measuring out the eye widths to make sure I get them placed proportionately on the head. The ears are going to be small rectangles on the side. Give a nice hard jawline. Kind of draw where the eyebrows might go, and the nose. And then next we can kind of measure out for the mouth. By doing this, I make sure that things are going to fall where they should on the head before we go into any details. And you can erase some of the guidelines as you go along like I do. And I'm going to speed up the recording a little bit at this point so that it's not so slow and tedious. And go ahead and fill in the dark, or fill in the lines with dark lines and replace them. And I'm not going to talk too much about how I go about doing the details. And at later tutorials I'll talk a little bit about that. But one good practice is just to look at people or photographs, or possibly look at other people's drawings. And you're welcome to pause this at any time and use my drawings as a reference to kind of see where and how I draw these things. Some of the details you'll notice I am drawing are little folds or whatnot where the brow is. I'm drawing some cheekbones that kind of go down to the chin, the neck, drawing some of the different tendons in the neck, and drawing the traps and of course the hair. Don't worry about drawing individual strands of hair either, as you'll see. Just kind of draw the shape of the hair. So there we've got kind of a basic male. And, once you kind of know the proportions of the head, you'll be able to do this pretty easily. And later on, you can always change them or break the rules. And honestly, for real people, the rules are probably going to be broken to some degree anyways, because real people aren't perfect. But for right now, for practicing, just kind of getting used to the proportions is pretty important. So next we'll draw a female head. And I'm going to start with the same things, a circle, lines for the chin. You might think that since women have softer features, you wouldn't want to draw the chin the same way. You wouldn't want to have kind of a hard corner, but really you don't need to worry about that. The eyes, however, if you're drawing a comic book person like we kind of are now, you might want to make the eyes kind of bigger. That's a good indication of a female. And also drawing more of the eyelashes. Don't draw individual lashes, just draw thicker, darker lines where the eye meets, or where the eyelashes would be. And of course with the lips, we'll draw a fuller bottom lip, and actually give an outline to the whole lip. So real quick here, and of course this is still sped up, real quick we just kind of fill in some of these details. And you can see the same rules that I use when drawing a male applied to drawing a female. Some of the differences, of course, are going to be how you render the eyes or the eyebrows or the nose or the lips. Aside from that, really, there's not a whole lot. I guess the hair too. Long hair for women. Of course, you can have a guy with long hair, so who knows? And here you can see kind of the finished drawings, and I've just gone through, cleaned up some of the guidelines, erased them, and then darkened up some of the other lines. I hope you'll note too that I used a nice thick brush when doing this, so thicker than you were probably using with your pencil. Don't worry about having the sharpest pencil to do all the details, because those aren't really what's important here. And I hope you'll take a chance to kind of try out these steps and do it again and again, and make sure you get familiar with it. And next time we'll be drawing the head again, but from the side in a 3/4 view. Please share any comments that you've got in the comment section, or recommend future tutorials. And thanks for watching.